witness, please.
My name is Leah Deasing, and I serve as the Chief Innovation Officer for the City of Riverside. But today I'm here in my personal capacity as someone who advocates both locally and nationally about the potential of open data. In the 20th century, there was a movement to open up the source code or computer programming code for server operating systems and applications. The intent was to share intellectual property with others for the greater good. At its inception, many in the tech world didn't know how important the open source code movement would become. Had that movement not occurred and had it not been for the advocates pushing it forward, we wouldn't be the technologically advanced society we are today. The open data movement is the next big thing. Open data is data that we already have in our internal systems, and much of it is publicly made available through CPRA requests. Open data can be published in an online portal and readable in a friendly format by humans or connected to by software systems. From an IT perspective, by proactively publishing data, we reduce the number of ad hoc one-time requests for that data that we receive. This builds efficiency because we only have to vet issues like redaction for privacy and security one time and then publish that data set out that can then benefit thousands. Open data can help us find correlations and patterns using heat maps and other data analytic tools to layer various data sets, identifying trends that were not visible when that data was stored in a silo. It has the potential to allow government agencies to interact with citizens in new ways and even crowdsource creativity around existing government problems. More importantly, the open data movement has the potential to provide innovative solutions and identify and solve government problems that we may not even know exist. However, innovators and developers can't create such solutions without knowing more about the types of data that agencies are holding. This bill represents a key first step in fostering open data sharing across public agencies, outside developers, and the public.
Thank you. Next witness, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members, for having me. My name is Rob Karinke. I am with the firm of Grassroots Lab. We're a public affairs and technology firm based in Long Beach, where I also serve on the city's Innovation and Technology Commission. Government in California involves thousands of state and local agencies and departments that provide critical services. Developing and managing public programs and improving results requires a holistic view of how these agencies operate and how they can better work together. Today, that's nearly impossible. The evolution of information technology and government service delivery has entombed public data in layers of complex systems and across numerous agencies and departments unknown to the average citizen. The passage of SB 272 would change this in important ways, allowing for a first-of-its-kind evaluation of government data, its accessibility, and its usability by the public. The potential for the data catalog outlined in SB 272 is enormous. Standardized and freely shared, public data can inform policymakers as well as state residents about the operations and performance of government, as well as invite innovation from the public, private, and nonprofit sectors through increased collaboration and analysis. In short, it's a path to accessing and leveraging the vast amount of information state and local agencies hold on everything from the economy to the environment, or transportation, or in education systems, and more. The information called for is already public record. Very little of it is actively shared. As a result, most Californians don't know it exists, and opportunities for innovation and citizen engagement are lost. To determine what information is usable, the initial groundwork must be an inventory of information subject to public disclosure, its format, and a catalog of the responsible parties. As such, this bill is an important update to the California Public Records Act, as it provides an essential roadmap to accessing the data agencies use to conduct the people's business. Knowing what information is available is elemental to the spirit of the CPRA, and broader efforts of this kind have already been initiated by the federal government and various state and local agencies really around the world. Smarter governments work better and inspire confidence in those they serve, strengthening the connection between government and the people. SB 272 hopes to allow both government and the people to better understand how local government serves all Californians. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness, please.
Members, Chairman Michael Shaw, California Manufacturers and Technology Association, and to be very brief, we believe that the ability to utilize this information can help inform decisions, both local government, state government, and on that can help improve the economic environment in California, create more opportunities for manufacturers to come into California to create the good, well-paying jobs that help lift members of our communities out of lower means and into middle-class living, provide greater opportunity. This helps us understand the information that's out there currently available. It helps those who are looking to innovate and to develop new opportunities for utilizing that information to understand what's out there, what format it's available, and to be able to do better apples-to-apples comparison and help us understand what's working in different parts of the state and what's not. That will help us be more successful economically and on a host of other fronts as well. And we believe that SB 272 is a critical first step in moving California forward in understanding what we have available and how we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness, and if you could just give your name, affiliation, please.
Sure. Megan, thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Megan Brightwell on behalf of the California Professional Firefighters, pleased to be in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support, give your name, your affiliation. Right now, you can use the microphone behind you.
I'm Ann Kinner, a small business owner, and I'm speaking on behalf of the National Federation of Independent Business, and we support this bill.
Good morning, Yolanda Benson, representing the California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce, also in support.
Jim Ewart, California Newspaper Publishers Association. And while we have some concerns that school districts are not included in the agencies that would be required to provide this information, we're in strong support and urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? Is there any opposition?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Jolene Voris here on behalf of the Urban Counties Caucus. Unfortunately, we are opposed unless amended to the bill. We do want to thank the author and the committee chair and the staff for their work on this bill and the amendments last week. And I'm appreciative to learn that Senator Hertzberg is having more amendments to address our concerns, but that was the first time we've heard that they're going to address amendments in the next committee. So we still have 3 major concerns with the bill. And I also want to say at the outset that local government counties are very supportive of open data and transparency. In fact, the main reason that my organization got involved in this bill at the beginning was because we have several urban counties who have open data portals. They've been doing this for years, and we wanted to ensure that the bill wasn't going to negatively affect those efforts. That's how we got involved with it. Then our county CIOs, information officers, raised some cybersecurity concerns. So our concerns for the bill are not about the basic policy. We're not arguing about transparency or open data. What we are trying to protect is the protection for our constituents on cybersecurity and the potential for hacking. So there are 3 main issues that we still need to have addressed in the bill. First is the vendor name and product name. From the beginning, since April, we have asked that vendor name and product name be deleted. Several cybersecurity experts have told us, including the FBI, that makes us vulnerable to hacking. Yes, you can find it in a CPRA request, or you might be able to find the name of the vendor in a contract, but you won't be able to find the product name or the platform that they have in that software. We still maintain that needs to be deleted, or at least allow our IT experts to make the determination as to whether that's a vulnerability to our citizens. We do not think it's unreasonable to make this request, since there have been cybersecurity attacks on the federal government employees. So we just don't think it's unreasonable to see that our constituents are protected. The second issue is related to core services. We have also asked from the beginning that whatever definition you're using, whether it was enterprise system, now it's information technology, that be limited to our core services that we provide our citizens. We do not want it to include systems that are operational and provide. A lot of our counties do have locked. We have systems that operate our locked doors, our lighting, other security and basic functions that we do not think the public, A, would be interested in, or B, should have access to that information because of security reasons. Also, the bill now says hardware and software, and we think by adding hardware in there, it could also potentially make us say where our servers are, all of our equipment. We just think it's too broad. We're willing to work on the definition of core services to ensure that it reaches the author's goal, but that is also an issue that we need to have resolved. Lastly, there is some while we don't, and we have never asked for the bill to be taken out of the CPRA. I want to make that clear. What we have just asked is it be workable for our communities. So there also needs to be some clarification on the difference between the listing of data systems or a public record. Our county clerks have identified that as an issue. We need to be sure we are aware of how to implement this bill if it does get passed and signed by the governor. So we will continue to work with the author and his staff, but we have for a couple months been trying to work out these issues, and unfortunately, for the protection of our citizens, we have to remain opposed at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Greg Park, and I'm here on behalf of the California Police Chiefs Association as a member of their Technology Committee and the Municipal Information Systems Association of California, who are also opposed to SB 272 unless amended to address the concerns as conveyed by a representative from the urban counties. Local government supports open, transparent access to information and understands that open data is beneficial to California, promoting a robust economy and better informed community. We welcome the recent amendment that grants protection to information security systems and cyber security systems. Yet, although we agree with the benefits of open data, there is serious concern that the amendment replacing the terminology of enterprise with information technology and its expanded definition that includes both hardware and software poses a significant cyber threat to the safety and security of these systems. Individuals and organizations that seek to infiltrate technology typically undergo a series of information gathering steps to identify what targets, systems are available, and their related vulnerabilities. It can be during these network scans, social engineering attempts, and phishing email attacks that cybersecurity professionals are alerted to hacking attempts that are underway. In recent years, we are seeing and experiencing an increase in local government systems being targeted by hacking organizations. Knowing specific vendor details about hardware and software system provides a very clear cyber attack roadmap for those who seek to disrupt local government services or compromise consumer identity data. It is not uncommon that local government technology systems can be in operation for a decade or more, likely exceeding the records retention policy for the contract and procurement documents that were associated with that system's original acquisition. The underlying hardware and software for these aged systems can have numerous vulnerabilities and may no longer have security remedies or software patches available. For the details of these hardware and software systems to be made publicly available will greatly increase the likelihood of system infiltration and data breach. Essentially, if you know the inner workings of the lock you're trying to pick, you will be successful more often than not. We recommend additional amendments that exempt our community's 911 emergency communication systems, police and fire operations, jail facilities, public utilities, supervisory control and data acquisition, or SCADA systems, and personal privacy information related to employment records and customer billing data. Thank you.
Thank you.
John McKibben, on behalf of the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, we support the concept of open data, and for many years the clerks of the Board of Supervisors around the state have been putting more and more information and records on the web. So this is not an unfamiliar thing for us to do. We are in an unfortunate position of having to continue to oppose the bill unless amended. SB 272 would insert effectively, in amending the Public Records Act, would insert a conflict internally within the Act that we believe downstream is going to cause a lot of problems and confusion and frustration on the part of both the public and us, we as custodian of records. It's going to have a problem on us, create a problem for us as well. We proposed a simple amendment to address that issue. We were grateful of Senator Hertzberg's amendments to the bill so far. We're asking for one more amendment, and we would ask the committee to assist us in that effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support, if you could give your name, your affiliation, please. I'm sorry, in opposition.
Mr. Chair, members, Aaron McGuire on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association, also in opposition for the reasons stated. Thank you.
Faith Conley with the California State Association of Counties, as well as the Rural County Representatives of California in opposition.
Mr. Chairman, members, Jeff Frost, representing the Orange County Department of Education. We had sent a letter of opposition. Now that the bill has school districts amended out, we would like to remove our opposition. The problem is that the reference to school districts...
I'm sorry, I'm not taking additional testimony. Just would you state that you support it or you no longer oppose it?
We'd like to remove our opposition if it's referenced that it is local education agencies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enrique Roacho with the California Association of School Business Officials, and we were opposed and have removed our opposition, and we just encourage the statements from a prior colleague.
Thank you.
Leilani Aguinaldo Yee on behalf of the Los Angeles Unified School District. With the recent amendments, we also remove our opposition. Thank you.
Alicia Lewis with the League of California Cities. With the statements stated before by urban counties, we are still in opposition.
Dylan Gibbons with the California Special Districts Association, also in opposition for the reasons stated.
Gil Topidi with the California Municipal Utilities Association, representing 60 of the state's electric utilities and water districts in opposition.
Paul Yoder, Madera County Board of Supervisors, still in opposition.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the committee. Senator, I listened carefully to your testimony. We had a lot of discussions about this. And I completely agree with your notion of figuring out what data gets used, how it gets used, and putting all that together. But I think what I was struggling with in this bill, and I understand it's a piece of a longer-term strategy, and that's fine. But to use your example that you brought forward, your demonstrations, what your bill really would be doing would be requiring an agency, as you brought up the pieces of paper with the different language on it, to say, paper from Staples, toner cartridge from HP, and okay, I'm still not sure how we then get to the open data. If your bill was saying we need to understand what your data sets are, what sort of technology it is, in order to be able to draw out what data you're collecting, what format it's in, what's available, and then I think also, of course, that data that is public and publicly exposable, and I think that's some of the concerns that the agencies have. I think I would understand that a lot more. But when your witnesses talked about the need for data, what's open source, the information that was requested in this bill or that you've laid out doesn't even necessarily get to the architecture of the systems. It's simply a listing. So help me understand how this is foundational, and then the next steps, so that we truly get to a point of being able to understand, as members of the public, what's available, what's accessible, and how I get at it, rather than just a listing of IT systems.
Well, if it really goes to the language issue. Different companies, different products write their language differently. It is a dictionary. It's an access. It really builds upon what this committee passed out, this House passed out from Assemblymember Mainshine for AB 169. His talks about machine-readable code, but then this gives you, okay, so it's machine-readable, but then what company wrote what code, with what way, with what patch, with what this or whatever. It gives you the basics. So then somebody who wants to add value, or to be able to do as Mr. Mainshine did, looking at data sets, or as I felt with all the time at the Public Policy Institute of California and trying to figure out what this is, it's the first step. When you talk to the experts, which I've been talking to a lot for a long time, you start out in this process with kind of the two elements. We're kind of working hand in hand. Assemblymember Mainshine of this committee is the principal co-author of this measure and working together is that these two elements are critically important. What are the systems that you use? What is the machine-readable code? When you look at what you guys passed, what this House passed out, and it's really a roadmap to that, so that then you can then analyze it. You step back and say, well, let's find out that 72% of the 4,448 subdivisions of government in California use the same payroll system. Maybe there's some value to that. Maybe there's some add-ons that we don't think about because we haven't thought about it. That's the genius of this system, is that it touches all the things we haven't thought about. And so what we're asking for in creating, initially called an inventory, it was changed to catalog, is that roadmap. It's the menu going into a restaurant. We're not asking for the underlying specific bits of the ingredients of everything in the menu, but we at least want to be able to get to it to then analyze it. I could certainly, both as to this issue, our expert here from Riverside can maybe enlighten you and add some additional dimension to that if you think that's appropriate.
Well, we'll move on to other members. Mr. Mainshine, Mr. Chu. So, Mr. Mainshine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill. I think it's important. I will say I do have some comments on it. To begin with, when I was working on homelessness, and thank you for the kind remarks, when I was working on homelessness in San Diego, one of our biggest challenges, besides the intractable problem inherent in homelessness, but one of the biggest problems was there just wasn't any data on it. When we started there, kind of the general feeling was, well, homelessness is bad. And that was really kind of the extent of it. And while many of us agreed with that concept, there was no data to drive the argument and as to what needed to be done and how best to do it. So we started collecting it. It was an unbelievably difficult process to get agencies that worked on this issue to just come up with data that we could then compile in a way that we could address this problem. Transparency is a good thing. The public should be able to access information about their government. And whether it's homelessness or any of these other complex problems that we have, you cannot address it until you begin to understand what it really is. And I would say I take a little bit of issue with the argument that making information available and accessible to the public, to the citizens that we all are representing here, is somehow a cybersecurity risk. I mean, that's just... I find that argument a little bit disingenuous. We should know what our government's doing. We should be able to, especially all of us sitting here on this panel and in this body, who are attempting to provide solutions, however we all may come to this job, but all of us, I think, are in the business of trying to provide solutions to the problems that face California. And if it's just done by anecdote, that's not a good way to make public policy. And I would say, too, that making information available and accessible to the public doesn't increase a cybersecurity risk. These risks already exist. They're already there. No one's talking about providing personal, Social Security numbers of city employees. That's not what this does. That's there. That is in, obviously, City of San Diego has 12,000 employees. That information is sitting in computer files somewhere. That's at risk of a cybersecurity attack, period. So that's been the case yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That's not what this bill talks about. This talks about making data, for example, on how many arrests there are for quality of life, misdemeanor issues of homeless people in the city of San Diego. That's an example. How many times a chronically homeless person visits an emergency room is that type of data. All of these things make it possible to address an issue like chronic homelessness. And that's just one issue. And you're right. When you talk about, that happens to be an issue I care very deeply about, but there's thousands of other issues that other members of this panel or the public, whatever, may care about. And in California, of all states, where we pride ourselves on having solutions, being unique, thinking through things differently, having phenomenal technology centers, and innovation centers in this state that many of us, again, on this panel represent, districts that have that. Those are the types of people we want to unleash to provide solutions. What was kind of sad about when on the homeless work that we were doing, we went back to Washington, D.C., and I was told by HUD that we had the best data collection in the country. So if that's the case, that's kind of sad that other cities aren't doing that, other counties aren't doing that, because they just don't have the data to do it. So they kind of come up with solutions that they think might be good and kind of throw it at it because some of them kind of care about homelessness a little bit, so we'll throw something at it. Maybe it'll stick, probably not, but it doesn't solve a problem. And so I think this is a step. It's not the only step. There's a lot more that needs to be done. Right. But we've had a number of things that we've talked about as an assembly this year. We talked about, for example, law enforcement data. A lot of us are interested in what the law enforcement data is. But you need that data. You need that data before you can start crafting solutions to some of those issues. So this will help make fewer silos of isolated information, which is frequently the case with government. This will allow that data to be used in a productive way to help further drive better public policy. And I will add, just to go back to this cybersecurity argument briefly, the bill says that information technology systems shall not include the following. Information, among others, information technology security systems, including firewalls and other cybersecurity systems. There's any halfway decent hacker or person who's really sophisticated in this area understands what city governments are doing. It's not Department of Defense. It's not CIA. It's not highly sophisticated. They get it. So there's not this road. This isn't an invitation to hackers, and here's a roadmap as to how you hack us and get social security numbers of everybody who works for us. It's just a non-existent risk by this bill. It's there, but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about here today. So I think this is a good step. This is a good step.
Thanks, sir.
We need to do more, but this is an important step, I think, in making sure that government's responsive, that government's innovative, that we can start to tackle some much more significant, complex problems in our state. So I'm pleased to support this today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And let me first also start with thanking the Senator for moving this bill forward. I'm a big believer in open data. I think open data is the future of a 21st century government. When I served as the president of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, I championed and passed two of the laws in our city that Senator Hertzberg alluded to, which moved our open data movement, put up hundreds of data sets to make our local government more transparent, more effective, more efficient for the public, for analysts, for developers who could build apps to government. This is where we should be going as a state government. And as a founder of a tech company, I've always been amazed at how far behind government technology often is. And it is ironic given that our state is the center of technology and innovation in the private sector. I do think this bill is an early step toward how our state can address open data. I do know there obviously are some questions that have been raised around security issues and others, which I hear. I do have to say that I agree with the chairman of the local government committee that I am hopeful that a lot of these local vendors have systems that are secure. And just the fact that you name the vendor, I don't think establishes any security risks. If there are security issues with those vendors, that is a different problem, but that's not one that I think this bill exacerbates. That being said, I do serve on the local government committee. Look forward to helping to work on these issues if there are issues in committee, and happy to hear from others on that. But that being said, I'm also happy to make a motion to move this bill out of this committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. I'm very much in support of the bill and what's being attempted here. I had the opportunity to serve on the subcommittee for state government in the last 4 years and have come to the conclusion that technology is perhaps the thing we do worst of all in the state of California. and this is definitely a step in the right direction. I do, however, want to throw this out there, and it's not the first time you've heard it. It's reflected in the opposition, and I think Ms. Voorhees from the Urban Counties Caucus mentioned it, if only in passing. I am just not convinced that what you're trying to do here fits within the California Public Records Act. That, of course, is designed for sunshine. It is a great thing. However, it has got years and years of court cases built up and around it, and sunshine versus open data, which you're getting at, aren't co-equal. And I worry that maybe some of the opposition and some of the concerns that are being raised, legitimate or not, might be more realized in the Open Records Act framework. And if this were in a separate part of the law and the courts could start dealing with it as a separate concept, because it really is, that maybe some of those concerns and maybe some of that baggage from all these court decisions with the Open Records Act won't apply. So I urge you to give that some thought. I think that is a very cogent concern, both from the analysis. I know it has then cost implications, perhaps, but that may get over some of the hurdle. That said, good bill, good idea, and I'm happy to help move it along.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chow.
If I have just a couple quick questions for the opposition. Currently, under the Public Records Act, would somebody be able to obtain information, including, for example, vendors' information, hardware, software, or firmware, whatever they're wanting to get? I mean, would that information be made available to that individual who makes that request?
You can make that request. I don't know that the local government would provide that information if our county councils decided that was a risk, but they would see if it was applicable under the CPRA, and if it was a legitimate request and it wasn't coming from China or something, then I think we could provide that, but I'm not a lawyer, so I would have to defer to someone else on that point, but I could get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the committee? Seeing none, Senator, you may close.
Thank you so much. Thank you, committee members and Mr. Chairman, for the graciousness and the length of this hearing. I just want to make a couple of points with respect to what was raised by the opposition, and then close on my final point. Number one is, with respect to the security issue, we have taken most of the amendments, and as I indicated in my opening, in local government, we will exclude infrastructure controls for traffic lights, water, and sewage functions. We indicated to the chairman. We exclude physical control access systems and employee identification management systems and video monitoring systems that dealt with the real issue of security. But there's only 2 points I want to make. One, reiterating what a number of committee members made, which this stuff is totally available. Here's some examples of contracts where you can make them one-off. So we're going to play the gotcha game with the people and say, well, you got to go through every contract and guess what was there. These are simple examples from cities that have all the information that we requested. This is really making it available to people and really getting to the spirit, Mr. Vice Chairman, of the shift, what we've done here, and what I tried to stress in my opening. And I know there's tension of the locals and the unfunded mandate issues, and I'm not ignoring that. I'm not insensitive to it, but it is the whole Constitution of California. We have extended the Public Records Act that says when you play a game and you go to county council, it's the exact answer that you've got. It's going to go to our lawyer. Can you do this? Will the newspapers get what they want? Is that going to happen? Or are we going to have a data set for government that's available? Los Angeles is doing it. San Francisco, as the former supervisor indicated, is changing, so that then once you have access and you have the tools to access it, then you can actually do something with it and experiment and learn and maybe challenge some of the premises of the stuff that comes out of government and make government better. Secondly, with respect to security, the law already provides, I have a copy of the code section here, it's briefly referenced in the analysis, 62 54.19 that says nothing in this chapter, meaning the Public Records Act, shall be construed to require the disclosure of any informational security records of any public agency if on the facts of a particular case disclosure would reveal vulnerabilities to or otherwise increase the potential for an attack on an information technology system of a public agency. It is the law. It's been the law since 2011 because of the challenges that we face. So when you get to it, we've taken, with respect to the vendor and product name, already in the new amendments, which allows locals, gives them flexibility to decide which information will enhance vulnerabilities consistent with the current law. We have added exclusions under the term core services, which was added by this committee consultant in the analysis, and we will add further exclusions if necessary because we want to ultimately make it reasonable, but at the same time, we're pushing the envelope. Welcome to government. IT systems, we changed that at the recommendation of a committee consultant. The police chief said they didn't know about it. They're CC'd on it. It was the definition. I selected the old definition because in the private sector, that's what I used. It's what the city of Riverside used. Committee analysis says we want to change the definition. I think it's problems. We'll fix it in the next committee if we need to deal with it. For schools, we've already agreed to expand as I indicated to the chair, expand the language to local education agencies, not just to schools, to make it clear. I suspect we'll have the same challenge with respect to your AB 169, Mr. Chairman Mainshine. And with respect to the clerks, the point that was raised, we agreed to take clerks' amendments to allow locals to decide who makes the catalog. The point is that this is a big idea measured against all of this stuff that we're focused on the mechanics of government. Do we have to get the mechanics of government right? Yes. But do we have to be California? Any time you move people out of the comfort zone, the advocates in Sacramento largely are there to protect the status quo. They're not to invent the future. Will we make mistakes? Of course. Will we make changes? Yes. But if we're going to be in the point that was made that it is a little embarrassing that we're California, and even though San Diego's number one, Los Angeles has done some stuff, there's been some other places, this is a bill that I think moves that discussion. It is not the end-all and be-all, but we've worked very hard to try to really, in an elegant fashion, in the new construct of Prop 42, which changes the game. There's no question about it, and there's fear. There was a reference in the analysis that quoted the LAO's report that said this is going to happen. Everybody knew it. You're right, this is going to happen. Mr. Mainshine's measure references the same Prop 42 as this one, as I think Dr. Pan, and I don't know if Mr. Chow does it or not, but there's a number of bills that do that, and I think you're going to see a lot of this in terms of how the law changes, and this is, I think, what's going to be necessary when the state engages in the broader concept of figuring out what's a proper framework for an open data society that really, I think, in an elegant way, can really move California's government forward. I ask for your support of this measure.
Thank you. The motion is due pass to local governments. Call the roll, please.
Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wagner?
Aye.
Wagner, aye. Alejo? Alejo, aye. Chow?
Aye.
Chow, aye. Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Gallagher? Garcia? Aye. Garcia, aye. Holden? Holden, aye. Mainshine? Mainshine, aye. O'Donnell? O'Donnell, aye.